Thank you. We will now open the floor for public comments. Written comments of any of the received prior to the meeting have been entered into the record and provided to the members of the commission. Each person will be given typically 5 minutes.
Excuse me, Chair, we might want to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. To the flag. Except.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now we'll do the public statements. So each person will be given, so we do 5 minutes. Yes.
I was just going to say, for the good of the minutes, sir, could we key and unkey the microphones just to capture a good recording? If you're not speaking, then unkey, please.
Thank you. So again, we'll now open the public comments. Written comments have been entered into the record and provided to the members of the commission and staff. Each person will be given 5 minutes to speak. I will call to you to the table to speak. Please first turn on the microphone and state your name. So I have one registration form, and is it Frida? Frida, thank you. Frida, yes, go ahead, come on up. Yes, come on up, please.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good afternoon. Okay, good afternoon. My name is Frida Edinjuk, and I am here just talking about the red camera, the one that is Villa Road and Highway 99. And practically, first of all, I am here just to say I made an oopsie. I went a little bit, faster than I was expecting. I was just on my way to church. There was a lot on my mind, and unfortunately, I went a little bit over the speed limit. I have a good record. I understand that red cameras are really important for making sure that people are not speeding, for our safety, and all of that. So when I came to court and I was talking to the judge, I did ask a question whether I would be able to ask for a reduced fee. At this moment, I am experiencing some financial difficulties. I have been unemployed for over a year. And when I tried to present my case, unfortunately, he literally just said, go and talk to y'all. So then I decided to come and just give my public comment if there will be a possibility in which y'all can have a conversation in which individuals will be able to present their case when they're not able to pay for the full amount, maybe offering a reduced fee for these individuals. That would help me a lot in my case. So I totally understand your decision to put red cameras. I know that they're important for traffic safety, but I would really appreciate if you can have a conversation about, what can we do for individuals who are not able to pay the fees, because it's really impacting me and my family. I know that $165 doesn't sound like a lot, but when it comes, paying that fee on your groceries, it can be a lot. So that's it. I really appreciate your time. I don't know if there's any discussion, but I just wanted to express, that maybe others will be in my position, in which the fee might be a little bit more, and maybe for our judge to be able to offer a reduced fee if this is like a first offense, and maybe it was not, the speeding like a threshold or something like that. I just wanted to share that with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the only public comment form we have is there aren't, okay. Great, thank you. We'll go on to the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar items?
For this meeting, we don't have any consent
Pardon?
items. This meeting currently does not have any consent items.
I guess we don't have
On the
the
agenda,
Thank you.
yes.
Too many agendas here. Thank you. Okay. Let's go on to. Yes, go ahead.
I just have a question. What did we just listen to and what is this committee supposed to do with requests to change or to lower the cost of a fine?
I can take that. So we heard a request looking for information to, or asking for a discussion about, is there a way to have a reduced fee to be available to those, you know, and asking for a conversation to happen with that. I am not certain on where the role of the Traffic Safety Commission comes into that, as you can make recommendations to council. So if that's something you're looking to consider, you could go along and do something along that and have a discussion at some point related to that. But I would suggest that happen at another meeting if you were to pursue that.
Any other questions? Written comments, you know, we had a number of written comments. And this one was on obstructing tree, stop sign of 3rd and Main.
That was the written comment that we had on that. So that written comment came in as a written comment for this meeting. It's actually the type of thing that we get that comes through SeeClickFix, other means of reporting to us. And we work with code compliance for those type of things. So I've already forwarded it on to code compliance. Code compliance is already working with the property owner to get the tree removed. It'll show up on the active issues log, and it'll also be shown up as resolved and moved forward there. So I did speak with the person that made the complaint, talk them through the process for future. If they see other areas within the city, the process to report those.
Staff reports. So the first staff report we have is from the police.
Yeah, so I've provided each of you with a list of DUIs since May 11th and then also crash data since May 11th as well. Just something that everyone asked to see. Still trying to find a better way to get it to print out so it's a little more user friendly. Still working with IT on that, but that's the gist of it. Sir, you wanted a rundown on where we stand with our traffic cameras as far as speed cameras and things like that. So that was through a grant that we applied for. Application date was July 1. We turned our grant in 3 days prior to July 1. So I would assume we would hear back from the people that we applied through by mid-August at the earliest. And if so, then we will be getting 3 additional radar trailers, a 4th that'll serve a different purpose, but 4 different portable radar units that we can move around town when we have speed complaints in neighborhoods, mostly in the springtime. And also buying 2 more of the stalker type units that go up on poles that we can just track data and aren't seen, just so we can get a true good feel for the speed in an area without people knowing what we're trying to do. None of it's to monitor, or it's all to monitor, but none of it's going to be writing tickets or anything like that. It's truly just to go into neighborhoods and or areas that are problematic and give us data so we can get back to the residents and let them know, you know, exactly what we're seeing on their street. Because, you know, a police officer can't be on every street at every time. So waiting to hear back on that grant. And like I said, I think I'll have a thumbs up or a thumbs down by our next meeting.
Can you talk a bit about, I've seen, excuse me, some portable units are available now, a little different than just the recording ones that we've seen.
Yeah, so we have currently 2 portable units. You'll see them down by the golf course. You'll see them on Brucher, on Chehalem, on Winooski. We move those around to do exactly what these other units that we're going to purchase will do. Those are over 10 years old, so they're a little antiquated. And to get data from them takes a little more time. So we got to bring them back here, plug them in, those kind of things. The new units will be able to upload live. And then also create graphs through the units and through the software. So it's basically going to be new technology to the two that you've seen around town, but they're getting so dated that the battery life and things like that, they're becoming more expensive to keep than they are to really have a benefit. So that's why we applied for these new ones. So it'll just be additional, just ways that we can go out there and, let the public know that we're hearing them. We can put those units in those areas. And what we see is, yeah, there are the occasional speeders, but most of the time we're able to give them a mean of, in a 25, most people are doing 28 miles an hour. 95% of people are. And that kind of helps people understand, if there truly is a speeding issue in that area or not. So it'll just be updated technology.
Thank you. Appreciate the update. Um, part- Yes, okay, public outreach.
Yeah, so the public information officer had let me know that
Brett, can you speak a little?
Yeah, the public information officer let me know that in May and June, she did some closures that are noted in the agenda and in your packets there related to roadwork closures, water valve replacements, and notification of the implementation of the traffic cameras near Garfield and First. And then also working with some resharing up information from other agencies regarding heat safety with vehicles. And then some holiday DUI posts were made as well. And then, as always, information officer is asking for any specific information that this commission would like to have shared to let her know, and that can be arranged, reworked towards.
I've seen some recent ODOT ads or what on TV talking about traffic safety in the summer and things to be aware of and be cautious, conscious of and things. So,
Yeah. And then related to that, the Oregon Impact, we get an email through that. I forward that on to the commission as well. That comes in with some information as well, and that gets reshared from that at times as well.
Does anyone have any questions, comments? Okay.
Then on the engineering report, our primary thing we cover in this is the active issues log. And what we have is keeping that tracking summary of where our progress is being made. Get a little closer. Is that we had in 2026 so far, we have 13 items added and 12 have come off. So we're making progress from where we had been. We're still working through that piece of it. And then within the summary, there we go. That kind of keeps track of where we're at. We still have 9 issues that Keller is in the Keller work plan that they're working through, and they're getting close to wrapping up a number of those. And then we have some items that have come in as received just recently, just in the last couple of days. There's been some things come in. One of the concerns is related to the Illinois intersection, as well as a intersection at Middlebrook and Springbrook, where there's some concerns there with some of the site distance issues. We're going to have to look into it, and that'll be on the next active issues log updates there. And then speaking of the Keller work plan, the Mountain View and Alice Drive, they completed that study, and that's with the city manager and capital engineering, the property owner, to work through some solutions that was presented in that study. And then the 3rd Street and 3rd and Center and 3rd and Meridian, that one is completed and is with the city engineer for next steps. We're anticipating that's going to go the direction of a limited decision that'll lead and be to noticing for that area before implementation of that. And that'll most likely be presented at the October meeting of this commission. And in the Villa at Hallworth intersection, that study I actually have that for review. It's in my court and other staff. And then getting back to that. So similarly, I expect that one to come back to the traffic safety and be presented there. So I'm keying up Keller to come into the October meeting to present where they're at with the studies that have been completed and moving forward. The North Villa at Laurel, that one is still kind of getting started to do the investigation in the field and confirm issues, and then identify some options for that. Some low cost mitigation measures is what we're asking them to look at for that.
Thank you. Any questions? No. Okay.
And then the only other thing that's I kind of actually I'll mention that the GIS analyst is we're continuing to still gather speed data where we have concerns that come in on the active issues log. I think we're pretty well caught up together in the items. And for the most part, what we're finding is at most of these locations, we're finding that there isn't that actionable speeding occurred. It's more of a perception of speeding. A lot of times there's a lack of sidewalks or other elements going on that gives a perception of speeding versus actual speeding that gets to an enforceable level. But we continue to monitor and check for all of those because at some point it's not going to be, or it might not be. So.
I did have a question. When an item is received, is there a response that goes back to that whoever submitted that, so they understand something's been received and there will be some action taken on that?
Very good question. Yeah, those are identified whenever they come in, when they're sent back a notice, however it comes in, we'll get information to them that that's been received. It's going on the active issues log and giving information to the website and where that can be tracked and followed. And typically whenever the issue becomes resolved, I make attempt to also follow up and give them a status of where that is. Sometimes that time period takes a while, as we've seen from the active issues log as we get there. And sometimes it's become that the issue isn't there any longer if we've identified some things in either solutions or that there wasn't anything actionable. So
Why I asked that question, I listened or watched the July 6th city council meeting. And I don't remember which one of the councilors, but they did mention previously that they had submitted some actions and hadn't received any feedback. This was a period ago, I understand.
Yeah, that could be prior. At times in the prior, I can't speak to since I've been involved with it, but everything that comes in since I've been back being the liaison. And if it's on the active issues log, they've been contacted to let them know that it's there.
Yes, sir.
The particular correspondent in that case made a dishonest statement at council, and I have an email to prove that it was responded to.
Oh, good. Great. Thank you. I appreciate that because you want to make sure that when something comes in that people do get a response. So appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, question.
Brett, when these studies are done and saying that, and the recommendations are being submitted for review and that kind of thing, is there a way that we can see what some of those might be so that, we know that you're getting it done, but it's like, well, what was the suggestion?
You're right. So that's kind of what I'm looking at in October is kind of with Keller with work, because we haven't made any of those decisions off of these elements. They haven't gotten to that stage yet. So as I'm expecting that to be in October, so that's where I'm looking to be bringing those and having them give a presentation similar to what they did with the Fernwood and Brucher in the presentation at that one there.
Right,
The difference being is I
complete.
believe at least the third and center, third and meridian are going to be a limited decision versus being a larger element that goes to a capital project and that type of thing.
Thank you.
I think it's an old issue now, but I noticed the crosswalk has been installed on Fernwood. Like the lights are up and everything. Is there more signage going to be done, or looked like there was something taped over the controls for a period of time? So is it operational now, or?
I'll let the city manager take that
Okay.
one.
So we were waiting for the wiring harness, and the wiring harness has arrived and the device is now operational. I'm not sure if there is more signage coming in. The sight lines to that particular location are very clear and they're quite effective. The other thing is that the public affairs officer makes a point of always posting about any new crosswalks that go in or things that are sort of permanent changes, just to let people know. And she approached me last week about doing a posting about that crosswalk and another one somewhere near Mountain View where there was 2 crosswalks have gone in recently.
I know there's some work that needs to be done by CPRD to do kind of a realignment of their pathway around and do you have any idea of time frame or what's going to happen there?
No, but when I'm out paddling on the river with Clay on Sunday, I'll poke him on the back with my paddle and I'll say, can you tell us when your guys are planning that trail realignment? And we'll find out. But you're right. The point about that was to take away the false impression that people should cross the road at that dangerous location where there's a blind spot. And he knows that his side of the house, we've got some work to do as well.
Thank you. Okay, we've discussed the traffic safety issues. We're playing with Keller.
Yep.
Um,
So yeah, that was the end of for the engineering
okay,
staff report there, so.
so we're down to the City of Newburgh SS4A Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, Grant?
It's a grant application that's been working, city manager worked with Keller to get that application, and the idea is that they would get funding that would
Can you
go.
speak in the microphone?
The
again?
idea with that grant is that it would
Pull a little
go.
closer to you or something?
Thank you. The idea with that grant is that it would be, if received, will be to able to assist with getting the things off of the active issues log sooner, quicker than what we're currently pursuing there.
Do you want to go to a little more description of that or what's? Okay. Please, thank you. Will.
Since I wrote the first draft, which was not in engineering speak whatsoever. So what I did is, with the help from Brett to get some information, I got the list of things that are on the traffic safety log. I prepared some preamble. And when I thought it was good as a sort of a scope of work, I then submitted that to Keller Engineering so that they could request funding through this grant mechanism to, in effect, clear the items on the log. If we get the grant, there would be a flurry of engineering work would happen at many intersections that still remain to be addressed. And so that would be that's the goal of it. And if it works, it would actually create a traffic safety plan based upon not just those intersections, but perhaps with a bit more meat on the bone. And that's probably all I dare say as a non-engineer.
Did you know that the state of Oregon is also working on their 26, the 5-year plan anyway, on their safety, ODOT's Transportation Safety Action Plan. And they're submitting it to federal for funding, and they've got about 10 major areas that they're looking at of what they want to put together a safety plan for over the next 5 years, dealing with intersections and departure from roadways and speeding, drug and alcohol use. They have a whole list of things that they're going to be working. And then they have 30 action points they want to work on next year. And I'm not sure if there's any, kind of discussion or use of that with the city's plan.
So the Keller engineers involved are actively aware of that. But our driver here was more sort of a local focus, and especially considering intersections that have had complaints locally and drafting something that can help us move things forward a little bit quicker. Given that we usually don't have the money to do a lot of engineering studies, as you know, the amount of money that we receive from the state is pitiful and hasn't kept up with inflation. So this is a way of trying to clear the backlog.
Good, I appreciate that.
And if we win the victory, you guys will be the first to know.
Thank you for the update there. Okay, so we're done with old business. On to new business. And the first item is a presentation by the city manager on the SDC for TSC. I really wish we would not use initials and really kind of write these things out so we understand.
Come on, SDCs are such a time-honored acronym in
That
Oregon.
one works, but
I mean, this is a good one. Thank you, commissioners and Chair Coleman. It's my pleasure to present this evening a little bit of information about system development charges. And actually, this is something near and dear to my heart because I paid $60,000 in tuition fees to be able to learn more about this when I did my last master's degree. And so it was an expensive lesson, but one that's very valuable in this context. So first of all, let's talk about what system development charges are. They are one-time charges. They are not ongoing rates. They're paid for by developers at the time of development. SDCs, System Development Charges, are available for water, wastewater, stormwater, transportation, and parks, used for capital only, that is capital improvements, both in their calculation and in their use. They include a charge basis for both the existing system when companies build onto our system, and they have a component to capture the cost of future planned infrastructure, typically only in the 20-year planning horizon. System development charges are system facilities, not local facilities. In other words, if you imagine the entire matrix of the water system, that's what people are buying into, or things that are being added to the water system is what they're paying to expand. So not this pipe right here, but your share of the system. Next slide, please. So here's a bit of history. These charges have existed since 1989, and as usual, cities in Oregon can only collect and operate SDC programs as set forth by the heavy and controlling hand of our state. This provides a uniform framework for the imposition of these charges under ORS 223.297 TAC 314, and the charge basis is set by those legislative rules, only to be used for capital thinking. New slide, please. Now let's talk a bit about what sorts of system development charges we see here in Newburgh, because not all municipalities charge all of the different SDCs. It depends on their setup. So in our city, we charge water, wastewater, stormwater, and transportation SDCs. And we do not charge directly parks. We collect parks on behalf of CPRD, and the parks SDC revenue is passed over to CPRD. So we're just acting as the pass-through agent because we're the ones that have billing counters that people can come to.
Question. You mentioned earlier that to be part of an SDC plan is a part of a 20-year looking forward need. And so how do projects get on that 20-year forward-looking need?
So do you want me to keep all the questions to the end, or do you want? Okay, so I'll take this one right now. So in this city, we actually have a CIP building policy, and every 2 years, led by the city's capital engineering team, we get together and all the departments bring forth items that they feel should be on the capital improvement list. And those items are ones that we're going to be working on. Now, in order for those to get on the SDC list, there has to be a convergence between a need and city master planning. So the majority of the items on the SDC data table live on there because one of our master plans, like the stormwater master plan, for example, has indicated that a certain piece of stormwater line needs to be upsized. So it's a confluence between need and the next master planning cycle. And the different master planning cycles occur anything between 4 and 10 years, depending upon which master plan we're considering. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the years that go with each utility off the top of my head. Does that answer the question?
Does, then brings up the next question. It appears that the transportation plan has not been updated for several years. And what is the plan to get that updated?
And now, Roger, with all due respect, I'm going to finish the presentation,
Thank you.
and then I can take all those other questions. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so why assess SDCs and what are they used for? SDCs help pay for existing and planned infrastructure to serve for development. They're one method of financing infrastructure to respond to growth. Now, it's worth noting that system development charges can never pay for the whole amount of any given piece of infrastructure. They only cover the portion of the system element which is expanding, and that percentage is called SDC eligible. And let me show you with my hands. Here is a pipe. This pipe has a certain capacity. Here is another pipe with more capacity. The system development charges can cover the capacity difference between this pipe and this pipe, but they do not cover the whole cost of this pipe. So it's the difference in capacity that creates SDC eligibility. And that's why, unless the pipe is completely brand new, it's never 100% SDC eligible. And you can probably tell I've given this speech a few times. New slide, please. So here is how it's calculated, and it doesn't get way into the algebra, but if you want that, we can actually send you the models, because that's how transparent we are here. Said no other city in Oregon. So the reimbursement fee is the fair share of existing capacity. The improvement fee is the fair share of these planned projects, the ones that are in this usually 20-year horizon. And the charge is the balance between the two. New slide, please. And here is the same thought expressed with a different graphic. And so the factors that are being considered might be amount of water carried in a system. It might be trips if it's transportation, and it might be other factors depending on what the utility is. So for example, our friends at CPRD would consider park acreage and things like that in their model. And we also here, unlike other cities, redo the model every 2 years by taking off projects that have been completed in order to keep SDCs fair and accurate. And that was part of a reform that we did a couple of years ago. New slide, please. And here is an example of some current projects from the CIP list. And then on the next slide, I'm going to show SDC eligibility. So this is just a little snapshot from one of our spreadsheets. You can see the different percentages of eligibility that we would have for that. And you can see what the total would be. And so when we come to build something, we look up that particular thing. We see what the eligibility is. And then as the money flows in to build that thing, it's a blend between SDC revenue and, for example, transportation revenue in the correct ratio. And someone like Dan Coiler, one of our accountants, he would be in charge of making sure that the purchase orders are blended in the correct ratio. New slide, please. And from the last table, here's the eligibility. The I&I 0 doesn't increase capacity, can't get any SDCs for fixing a lateral pipe. Maintenance yard, if it increased capacity, that project was worth 21%. Pipe replacement, 0, doesn't increase capacity, can't use SDCs. Capital project reserve, same. That's an emergency line item if we find a broken pipe unexpectedly, such as the valve we just replaced recently on First Street, not SDC eligible, but we still did the work. The I&I report, 50% SDC eligible, as would the TSP be, because it identifies things that will increase capacity in the future. Oxidation ditch, 70 to 80%, depending on the element, because we're building a gigantic new thing and increasing capacity. It's kind of exciting, actually. New slide, please. So here are a list of some of the transportation SDC capital projects that come out of the current data. And if we were to look at any particular transportation project, we would find the location it would have a code number with it, and it would also have SDC eligibility, which we would then use when we come to pay for that thing. New slide, please. And here are some examples of some recent things from the SDC data table showing their different percentages of eligibility based upon the increase in the capacity of the transportation system. New slide, please. I am not an engineer, but sometimes I am forced to play one on television. So at this juncture, let me reveal to the chair, we do plan on going out for a transportation system update to that plan, to that report for the TSP, and we plan on doing that next year. We actually had hoped to do it this year because we thought we were very likely to get a grant to pay for the $200,000 to do the work. We did not get the grant. And Scott Siegel in planning and I have agreed that irrespective of that, we're going to pay for it with straight cash in the CIP project next year. So that's coming. But, you know, we always try to get something grant funded if we can. Let me, at this juncture, invite any other questions that you may have about CIP or system development charges.
Any questions?
What is an oxidation ditch?
So let's not, to avoid using any inappropriate words in this chamber, when you enjoy, I just enjoyed a Gem 100 cheeseburger. But inevitably, after the burger is digested, the remnants of the burger have to go somewhere. And it enters the sewer system. And those remnants end up in a 430-foot-long ditch after it passes through the headworks, which takes out the unmentionables. And in the oxidation ditch, an aerobic biological process begins the breakdown of said former Gem 100 cheeseburger. So we plan to add a third oxidation ditch and thereby increase the capacity at the sewer plant.
Well illustrated.
Does the SDC eligibility refer to the total amount of money that the project pays for? Or like, if an SDC eligibility is like 21%, does that pay for like 21% of the entire project or just a portion of the?
Fantastic question. And let me say a little bit about inflation and indexing here, because this is where things get interesting. The 21% is true when the project is first derived, even if the project cost doubles because of inflation by the time it gets to being built. So it is always 21% of the cost of the whole project, but that apple pie can expand greatly if inflation arrives. And sometimes we find ourselves in the situation where we don't have enough SDC revenue left when we build the thing to actually get up to the 21% that is eligible. So we have more eligibility than we actually have cash on hand. That can happen. But it is the whole thing, 21% of that.
Any other questions about SDCs? It's good.
I guess I'll ask the next obvious question. How do you reconcile that then? If you're supposed to pay 21% of the cost from one, is it you just got to eat it and come up from the city?
You go like this, wah, wah, and then you have to just eat it. And so here's a good case in point. We're very lucky that we're not lucky, we've been careful. We're currently about to build this oxidation ditch, and it's a really large project. It's $30 million and then some. It's probably one of the biggest things the city will ever do, and it's a wastewater project. Now, we have sufficient SDCs on hand in our account to cover the SDC portion. good thing. However, if we were building the new water plant that we're going to need one day, if we were building that right now, we would be out of luck because we do not have enough currently in water SDCs to cover anything like a new water plant. Perhaps it will be different in 5 or 6 years, but to learn more about this, because it's an exciting topic, please do also attend the rate review meetings where we get into this in incredible detail.
Any further questions?
Brett, did I get it right?
Sound good to me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Looks like you're up next too? Or, no, Illinois?
Well,
Oh, yes.
Yes, okay, let's, moving on to new business. Item 6.2. Illinois street closure at North Main Street discussion.
Yes. So I've prepared a short statement, which I hope will not get me fired. Here we go. So the council decided that the time had come to reopen this intersection, given many months of trial. The council, I imagine that the council's request means that now the Traffic Safety Commission will probably, as supported by Brett as a project manager, derive a list of local enhancements that could be done in this area affordably. And then I assume that the Traffic Safety Commission would refer that to an engineering study to choose from that list. So I am imagining that when council requested your assistance on this, that they're looking for you guys to kind of sift through some of the ideas, make a list and refer it to engineering. I would, however, also recommend reaching out to your councillor to ask for more detail, but this is what I imagined that they were thinking. Any questions, folks?
I think I heard the term, they wanted a creative solution that our commission to, so I've met with Will, discussed with Brett, met with my councilman person, and I asked for an advance copy of tonight's packet. When Brett provided that to me, I was shocked. You know, there's a lot of information in here. And I know I tried to get through as much as I could of it, but realizing there's a lot of history here that needs to be looked at and digested. Comments need to be reviewed. And I'm not sure we're in the place we can deal with that at this point as far as all this information, whether we can have a meaningful discussion because of the volume of information that's here. Yes, well.
And yes, Chair Coleman, I can certainly see what you're saying. There's a lot here. I'm aware that many members of the public have already sent you possible alternative solutions. I'm aware that some of the guys from Public Works that work on the streets have sent in some possible solutions. I think it would certainly be impossible to tackle this in right now. It will take some time to review possible ideas, but I do think perhaps council's intent was that we would have a list at the end, and then when you guys are comfortable with possible solutions, that those could be passed over to engineering.
I don't know if anyone at this time has any suggestions, but I guess my suggestion is that we again table this discussion until our next meeting in October, so we get a chance to really have time to digest all this information. I mean, I looked at the last study that was commissioned a few years ago. There is, I mean, volumes of information about traffic studies they did. And it was mind-boggling to me to take a look at this and try to figure out what they were trying to tell me by this study they did. And I also was wondering, I know there's been discussion with ODOT about this particular intersection. It would be possible that we could invite ODOT to come to our next meeting in October to talk to us about their view of this situation and what might be some solutions.
Actually, the conversations I've had with ODOT in the last week or so after the council discussion, and ODOT became aware of that, and they reached out to me to get information on that, is I think we can definitely do that and be supportive of information within there. And within the packet, ODOT has given me some information that's in the packet about what their initial thoughts are and some things and suggestions on there for consideration. So, and if I'm hearing you correct, Chair, it's kind of like if you're looking to table this and come back to October, then there'd be more time for both the commissioners to review the data that's there, the public comments that are received. I do suggest that you listen to the public comments tonight if that goes that direction. And then back in October, as you have additional questions and things that can be directed to staff, and we can do what we can to try to answer those questions or point where the information could be obtained or what other resources might be available for that. So.
Yes.
And I might also suggest that if we are given the luxury of an ODOT visit, that we might perhaps ask them if they would consider reversing their position that they've made publicly that they're not going to pay for any signalized intersections at this time. That I think truly the best solution always has been at this location, a two-stage signalized intersection. And the statement is that they're not going to put any of those in right now because of their financial problems. But anything we do less than that might still be useful. But that is truly would be the best solution, I think, for this location.
I'm not sure, and you can answer this question, but does ODOT have a list of projects like was just presented about the 20-year plan? And is it possible this particular intersection is on that plan?
ODOT is working on they have a rolling capital improvement project plan that they work through, and they've got a new process for that. And I've had conversations with them about it in general, not about this particular location. And kind of one of the things that comes to mind is the Illinois and Everest and 219 out of that intersection. It's been on the elements for there. And there was originally planned for a intersection or a signalized intersection for that through the urban design verification study that was done led to that being a project that's within that element there for a compact roundabout at that location that is moving forward because it has the history of elements there. But for this location itself, it is not on that plan. One of the things that ODOT did give me is some contacts. The ODOT rep that I contacted me gave me some information for a representative with ODOT to make that specific request to them is would we get this intersection to be looking at on that list? The short answer that's come back in years past, and I expect it to be something similar, but that doesn't mean we're not going to make that ask, is the crash data doesn't support getting to that level to get it onto that list. They've got a lot of competing areas within Yamhill County in the area for things in this area. So is what they've expressed to me so far. That doesn't mean it's not worth pursuing and getting the ask to get the process started.
Using crash data is probably the worst measurement to make a change. You want to prevent that and that they have to wait for people to get hurt before something that is pretty obvious. I mean, we even have comments from people who want to keep Illinois open, saying that it's a major connector off of 240 to 219. And so that then ODOT needs to handle that major connector one way or another. So it'd be good to have them here talking and have them have other measurements besides people getting hurt as to raise the priority of an issue. It has to do with maybe if they did the traffic study, because I know that road is stopped dead every morning from 99 to Illinois with people waiting at the lights. And so that without being able to go down Illinois, that there would even be more traffic there and it would be backed up for quite a while. So that's something that you would think would be important to them. But again, it's we want to not have to use accidents as a only reason that we control an intersection. The other comment I want to make on this Illinois change was that when the blocks were first put up, there was a lot of notice. There were signs, everything, but when it got removed, there was no warning. And people are running the stop signs because they forgot that they were even there or they were used to them not being there. So it would have been nice if we had like traffic change notice, those little signs.
City Council directed staff to open the intersection immediately.
Yeah, we understand. That's why I'll be bringing it up to City Council, is that they probably were surprised that something happened so quick whenever they asked for something. No?
Actually, Russell, no, when the council asks for something, it happens immediately because we're not that kind of city.
Well, I talked to them about.
So
all we need is information. People just need to know when there's a change, major traffic change, put a sign up saying there's a change so that
Yes, sir.
people will be aware of it. Communication is
Yes,
key.
sir. Just to reiterate, staff were directed to reopen it immediately.
Right. But I still think someone in the traffic who decides on how traffic flows in this city should have been thinking, well, why don't we warn people? Why don't we communicate this first or while it's happening? It was like this idea that it didn't matter, that people in that community, after you've had all of this comment, obviously people are interested in this intersection, and yet a change was made and no notice put out. So that is a bad indicator of a council that is tone deaf to the community. But I will let them know. But as traffic safety, we are very interested in information out to our citizenry. That's why we work with public information officer. It's a hot item for us.
The city manager serves at the pleasure of the council.
When the closure was in place, was there any data collected about traffic flows or anything? Or was it just strictly signs put up, barricades put up, and nothing?
I would have anticipated that feedback would have flowed to this body about the efficacy or the lack thereof of the closure. And I don't know if you guys had received any additional information. We can imagine that if the closure hadn't ended so abruptly, we would have done some work on the back end to find out how people were experiencing the intersection. But as I say, gentlemen, don't shoot the messenger.
Two things. One, we heard that there was a comment about Illinois being a major connector between these two county roads. Was Illinois planned to ever be a road like that?
This is a very complicated intersection that has,
Yeah.
this is a very complicated intersection. It's really two intersections in close proximity to each other. East Illinois and West Illinois are not in alignment and have not been historically. The collectors are between two state highways, 240 being North Main up to the point of East Illinois, and then West Illinois going on out of town, College Street being 219. And so East Illinois connects the two of them, and you go through the two combined intersection. What makes it complicated and why the study that was being done that had gotten started was looking at that component of it. It's really two intersections. It's an intersection made up of two intersections, and ODOT having an influence in a part of it, and part of it is all in the city realm, kind of the connection between East Illinois which is designated in the master plan as a major collector. It is the only major collector that connects between more or less directly, not directly, because there's a little segment of North Main, just a short segment before you get to 240. So ODOT is kind of, they deal with their intersection to the approach road, or they call it the local street there, which is that North Main. And then East Illinois has that connection. There's no other major collector that connects College Street and North Main till you get to Columbia, and Columbia is not fully built out. So there's not a lot of options to route traffic in other directions away from this intersection, the terrain and the buildup that's happened historically. So it makes it very complicated of what's there. So hopefully it gives a little background on that aspect of it.
Yeah, that actually gets towards my second question, which is there was a email that was shared recently where the citizen who shared the information recapped quite a long history of this area. I'd be curious to help understand sort of this information in front of me. Is it possible to get like a summary of the history of that area and why some of the decisions are made? Some of them to me were obvious, right? You know, at some point, 240 just kind of ended at the city, and they rerouted it to make it a more continuous route. But then there was some additional changes made, and I'm just curious, like, what drove those changes? What problem were they trying to address by adding those historically
Yeah.
making the changes to that intersection?
So that could be challenging to do the full research to find the full
I
details
don't
of
want you to
that.
kill time
We've
on
done a
this.
little
Yeah,
bit
yeah,
of,
yeah.
we've done a little bit of investigative work to kind of related to
Yeah.
that as come up with this intersection. And there's some history in there, and there could be, and that's, I guess I'll allude to, I think it's good to have the discussion you're having right now. And I think the chair's contemplated this tabling of this to a larger element,
Mhm.
but that's
Yeah.
the type of questions that I was suggesting that the commission think about, either make them tonight, send them to me over time, and then we can incorporate that into something and to identify the things that we can move forward with and the things that might be challenging or we need other resource sources for. And there may need approval from either the city manager or potentially the city council, depending on what the scope of your questions and information you're looking for goes.
I was also curious from, we can't be the only city that's encountered this weird kind of traffic setup at this type of intersection. And if anyone has knowledge of other cities' solutions to the same problems, what worked, what didn't work.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if that's even remotely possible.
So I've had a few conversations kind of a little bit with the ODOT and with over the years and in the decades that I've lived here and with dealing with that intersection before, even as a driver driving through it before even living here. The range of things with intersections that are like this, of what gets done by different jurisdictions, and it all depends on a whole set of circumstances of what's going on in each specific, but it ranges from doing nothing because it is so complicated and so costly, and just continuing to monitor it and make slight mitigation measures wherever they can, to doing the full large study and looking for the funding to do a full rebuild of an intersection. So the range is dramatic and it changes depending on the specifics. What also complicates this intersection, it's a little different than in a lot of other instances, is you have the state highway, city streets, major collector, freight route, trucks needing to utilize that scenario. So you add all of those things in there, this does make it a little more unique than a lot of the ones that I've ever encountered or been made aware of.
And here's another thing that the state of Oregon does wrong. In many states, the state highways that fall inside of the municipality are under the repair control as long as they follow state regulations of the municipality. We are blessed by the unique situation that we do not have that form of direct control and oversight over these state highway sections. Similar to the way in which in the state of Oregon, we don't have control over our own designation of land use. These are problems that we have, which is really a lack of home rule.
Yes.
I'm excited for public comment. I agree that maybe this is a bigger conversation for a later date, but I think it might be beneficial for us to highlight some priorities in having this discussion. Like, what are our true North Stars for this intersection? Is it neighborhood safety? Is it supporting business locally? What are we kind of basing what are we basing our decisions off of?
Thank you for the comments. Any other commissioner comments? I'm not sure how, if there are people here today to speak about this intersection, is that possible? I mean, it's not on the agenda, but how does that work?
Yes, we've received two people that registered for spoken public comments. There's
Okay.
public comments that have been written that are submitted into the packet. We have two, so I would suggest you could ask them to come and give their public comment at this point in time.
Okay, is there a list or?
I had given you the two earlier. Yes,
Used to.
those two.
Yes, okay, so we have
The name should be
Kathy
highlighted
Meyer
there.
is.
Yes.
Is Kathy Meyer here? Yes, please come.
Hi, I'm Kathy Meyer, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. So I don't know whether or not, Brett, did they get, everybody get my extensive packet? Okay, you don't have to hold it up.
That includes the Kittleson memo that was done previously, but it also includes the public comments and the reports and documents that you had provided as well.
Great. Okay. So there's a lot of meat to chew on in that. And as I was sitting here, I kind of, first of all, I would say that my husband and I own the, what most of you know as the PPM Technology Facility. So that's 100,000 square foot building on a 5-acre parcel. We were told in September that PPM who was purchased by Duravant Corporation, would be moving their facility to their headquarters in Walla Walla. And that is going to happen by January of 2027. So we're aggressively marketing the building for a new tenant. That was a loss of like 100 to 120 jobs from that site. And so it's really important for the community as well as for us as business owners. And we've had really good feedback. We're not terribly discouraged, although we don't have, bird in hand at the moment. What we were running into was people liking the building and then looking to their left and saying, well, we don't have the transportation connectivity that we expected and we've always had. It's important to realize that that this property sits squarely between Highway 240 and 219. And so and also on the rail. So if you bring in goods from the rail, which some people have discussed, and they remanufacture it, they'll send it out by truck. And depending on which way they're going to go, if they're going to head over to Hillsborough, they're going to take 219. If they're going to head west, they're going to take 240. And plus the truck radius, if you go to 240, is a wider turn radius. This property has been there since like the turn of the century, since Allen Fruit was there, and then it evolved into PPM Technologies. We're now in a situation where we have it's a huge building, so we are marketing to multi-tenants. And in the past, we've had like wineries that have used the building, and wineries, of course, are going to take 240 to go to wine country. So it is an important freight route. And also realize that we are probably the largest percentage in the northern sector of the enterprise zone. So that street, East Illinois, which is really effectively, I agree that it's an unusual intersection, but I also would say that in 2021, we had one crash. In 2022, we had one crash. And in 2023, we had two crashes. So we have really limited crashes. And in fact, once we did the closure, I think the police, and I might be wrong, said we have more crashes with the closure. We're going to have a lot more infrastructure problems too with the closure because we transferred all the traffic over to minor residential streets. And that was an equity problem because it's an equity problem for me because and for the city because we have to get new jobs and we have to reliably say I have transportation connectivity. And it's also an equity problem for the people that suddenly became a major collector. And they were sitting on North and Washington Street, which is just a tiny street. So I am so grateful. And I think it's a really wise decision. And I really urge the Traffic Safety Committee to allow us to be guided by engineers and professionals to solve the cumbersome questions. And I would say line of sight is really a really important question to be answered for the intersection because I don't believe has been done. And I also think that through the ODOT's ADA installment of the crosswalks, we have some good like surveys that we can work off of that won't be as expensive, and maybe we can reuse some of that data. So those are things that are really important, and I think we've made the wise decision. And it's complex, and it's gonna not be solved with just unprofessional guidance. But we hope to bring jobs back to Newburgh, and we hope to see the property and the transportation system work smoothly and operate well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And are we able to ask questions or what's the process?
You typically with this commission, it's not typical with all elements there. You can accept the public comment and thank the person, or if you have specific questions, you can ask as well. It's your kind of your call, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming. Do you have potential solutions that should be explored?
That's a nice question. I appreciate being asked. That was one problem that we had was that we as property owners weren't notified of the closure. So there's a lot of complaints as well in the record of other property owners, like all the people on North and Main. They weren't notified. They just woke up one day and they were acting as a major collector. So I would refer you back to Brett actually from June 20th, 2023, when they evaluated the engineering study. They did a really good job you did a really good job explaining all of these questions, like how cumbersome it is, how important it is we bring in the community to solve the problem, that we have an inclusive partnership with ODOT, with the community, with the business owners. When we rushed to the change to close it, we dropped all that. And so if we can get back to that course, that would be fantastic. I would say that ODOT's going to be super important because that's a freight route. 240 is a freight route and 219 is a freight route. And the shortest connector is North Illinois between the two. So you're not really impacting just the city. We're impacting the transportation system really of the state. So good communication with ODOT will be really important. The other thing that I saw on your agenda that I really liked is that you talked about the line of sight, and there is a property on 703 North Main, and we did grant them a variance in 2020, January of 2024 for a really tall hedge. So if you drive that intersection, you'll see it's 7 foot or greater, and then the other part of it is probably 15 to 17 feet high. So while I appreciate that they really love that barrier, the property owner, they did buy a house on a busy intersection, and the property fair market value would have dictated a little bit of lower cost for that. And I don't even want to get in the weeds about that. What I would say is line of sight a question? And the variance that we granted for the line of sight obstruction was a variance that was looking really narrowly just at their driveway. So I don't think we've really properly had a line of sight evaluation in the intersection itself. Am I correct on that?
The variance that you're referring to, I do believe that was related to a driveway and vision clearance setback associated to that. So based upon the land use case with that part of it, it was limited to that driveway and the intersection of site distance, and they did a site distance evaluation for that. It did not extend on to the intersection. It wasn't part of the scope of that.
So if we really want to look at low cost mitigation, the first thing that I would from all of my research look at is vegetation mitigation. And that would be a 2.5 foot, I think, hedge on those corners. And that may make it a lot simpler for traffic to be able to, especially on Main, to look to the right and see and identify if they have a right of way and it's clear and safe. The other thing is just like, have we done the survey of the intersection properly, or just the ODOT ADA survey?
Referring to like a topographic survey of the intersection, there's a number of types of surveys, so I'm just looking for clarity on that.
I don't know the different
Okay.
types of surveys. I know I looked online and I saw a survey which would help identify line of sight because it was for ODOT's ADA crosswalks. So I don't know what type of survey that
Yeah,
was.
it depends on what, in the scope of the survey will indicate what material, what actually gets collected in those elements there. So a full topographic survey would collect information that could be utilized for some of that. And site distance evaluations are also in the field with an engineer and processes to go through and continue that for different purposes and different intersection elements for controlled intersection, uncontrolled, different things that go into that. There was a survey done with the project, the initial North Main, Illinois study. It was more of a boundary and right-of-way survey that collected information there. And there was some topographic information that was collected with that to be able to move forward with, if that project would have moved forward, to move forward with any kind of concept designs or things in that regard.
Okay.
I was just going to say, related to the site distance element, that's one of the things that's listed within your packet, the things to consider. Those are kind of things that have come about from a number of things. Myself and others I created that feeding in from other comments from the public, from everybody that's commented up to this stage. The site distance element that is one of the things that's there. There's some vegetation that's overgrown and more of that island or the bulb out that's created there. And I'm pursuing some responsibility component as to who's responsible for that. And I had conversations with ODOT and our code compliance officer and others, and I'm still pursuing that because that is a thing that could help improve that. I think the vegetation has grown and increased in the time that the closure had existed there versus how it had been previously. So anyway, that's something that's in progress pursuing, just to be aware of.
I think that's all. I would hope that we can find more options, and I don't know how feasible it is to. We did see City Council approve the study, the engineering study in 2023, and at that time it was 400,000 that was allocated towards the study, and it was halted halfway through or a portion through. So I don't know how much money got spent on that, but I would be curious as to since it was approved and it was just sort of paused or canceled, are those funds still available?
Chair, would you like me to answer that question? So the project was canceled, so those funds are not available.
The reason why the council cancelled the project is because they knew that there were no follow-on funds to build a signalized intersection. They also knew that the implementation of a roundabout at that location would require the condemnation of at least one house and the expense of that house, plus the expense of a roundabout installation. That is funds that the city does not have. And so that was the decision that council made to cancel the rest of that study, because obviously there was no money to implement anything.
So I appreciate that answer. What I would say is it presupposes the conclusion of the study. And it says, we think that they're going to recommend a roundabout. And we think that we're going to have to foreclose on 2 properties. And the very word like we think is showing that we didn't actually allow them to finish give them the opportunity to finish their suggestions. And so it presupposed what ODOT was going to recommend.
We're ending up moving into a position of banter, which is not what we normally do in public comment. But I definitely will pass on your feelings about this to council and express that you would like to see that continue. Is there any other public comment this evening?
I think that's all. And yeah, so I really hope that we can take another bite of the apple. And I think, honestly, that there's enough bright people in here and we've really, really whittled down a lot of the problems. And it isn't a not safe intersection. It's a congested intersection, an awkward intersection. So time's on our side to come up with some solutions to that. And in the meantime, as a property owner, I am so grateful that everybody was responsive. And I think that we really hope to bring jobs back to Newburgh, and transportation connectivity will help us to speak confidently when we have like buyers or tenants to that question. So.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
I have Tim and Barb Trask.
Hi, I'm Barb Trask. My husband, Tim. We are also residents of East Illinois, but we have a house. And so I appreciate, Commissioner O'Neill, your comment about what should the North Star be, because I think East Illinois has a lot of residents on it. And we live about 3 houses away from that odd intersection. And so we believe that our life on that intersection has given us a very real understanding what it is to live on that street, and the safety issues that impact those of us who live on it, as well as those who regularly use the road. So while we have that firsthand experience, we are also grateful for all of the information that was in the packet. We looked through it pretty carefully, and we appreciate the broader historical picture that all of that information has provided us about the difficulties that the thoroughfare has been fraught with over the decades. We trust that you've had an opportunity to consider the written statement we shared with the City Council meeting last week. It focused primarily on travel on East Illinois and specifically speed mitigation, as we had hoped that those safety concerns would persuade city councilors to maintain the road's closure while other solutions were considered. But that wasn't the case. We thank the Traffic Safety Council for undertaking the task that the City Council has given you all, what to do about the intersection, which seems quite a large undertaking, given the volume of information that you have to consider. Indeed, just like the closure of East Illinois last fall prompted much discussion on social media, the recent reopening has done the same, and we're certain, or we hope, that you've had an opportunity to peruse some of the comments that those who follow the city's and Newsburgh's pages have made. We've seen a fair number of posts from residents who share our displeasure with the reopening, but more importantly, we've also seen a number of suggestions that might be considered for making the intersection more tolerable for drivers and pedestrians. And we do walk that intersection daily with our dogs, and it's a little sketchy as we're crossing multiple roads coming from multiple directions. We can't prognosticate what will be discussed this evening or what conclusions you all might come to, but what we would ask of you is to please do something with that intersection. We realize that the intersection's closure for the past 10 months has resulted in significantly reduced traffic volume right now. Well, we can hope that through the closure, people have found alternative routes that they prefer, and they maintain their patterns of going on those routes. But in all reality, we anticipate that the former heavy traffic volume and congestion that it caused, that when it's open, we expect that to return in the near future. Solutions that allow for better traffic flow through the intersection will produce a safer residential street, to which we really look forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Any questions or?
I guess just to ask for consistency, I know you kind of mentioned it in your comment already, but do you have any solutions that you suggest?
I do agree with Mr. Worthier and Mr. Music. Is that
Music, yes.
Okay. That I think some vegetation, and specifically on that island, as it were, as you cross North Main, it's that vegetation. I think it makes it difficult to see cars that are coming from downtown, and knowing whether if they're using their turn signal, whether they're going to turn and stay on Main, or whether they're going to turn on East Illinois. You know, you just don't know where cars are going, and I think at least making the visibility there to see turn signals would be nice. But maybe the vegetation, those tall hedges that are on North Main and Oregon 240, maybe they obstruct some visibility, but it might help. But I don't know that that's a big thing. I liked some of the online suggestions for limiting left turns, but I realized that I don't agree that doing that at certain times of day is feasible, because putting a sign up to say you can't turn at 3 p.m. isn't going to stop anyone. It's just going to cause them to honk their horns and cause our dogs to go crazy, in the house when they hear all the horns honking. But I think limiting left turns, period, might be a good idea, but it will certainly limit where people can go. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I think that I appreciate your perspective. I think it's not necessarily a line of sight issue solely. I think it's a congestion issue. I think looking back at the data, and that was quite a bit of information to go through, During the week of study back in September of 2023, there were 2,500 cars a day on average going down that road, which is a huge number. And the issue is that wonky intersection where people are trying to make a left, everyone's merging, and surely someone's going to be in the middle of that intersection because they wanted to get in line, and then it blocks everything up from 3 different directions and on 240. And I think that's the congestion issue is, I think, the main focus. And I think safety and thoroughfare will go along with that if we can design that intersection just a little bit better.
Thank you.
Thank
Can I
you.
ask one question? Brett, is there any way that, like,
Yeah, I didn't comment onto that earlier. There was within ODOT, contact with the information to ask for a request to get on the CIP plan similar to what the city has there for that piece of it. The issue is competition with other areas within the Newburgh area as well as the state as a whole. So we are getting into an area into a debate scenario outside of our typical addressing of public comments and things. I just want to push that.
Thank you. So those are the 2 people we've signed up for public comments.
Yes.
Okay. So I had a suggestion again that we continue this, yes, and bring
I
back.
will move that we put in as agenda item to discuss this, the Illinois North Main 240 intersection. To come up with possible solutions.
Okay. I think can
And
we
other
add,
issues that we may want.
can we add that we invite ODOT to come and speak to us also at that meeting?
Yeah, we could add that as well. If ODOT could be invited, I don't know who would do that, but we can move.
Let's clarify the motion, I guess.
Okay.
I'm hearing 2 components of things. One is
Yeah,
there a
so
motion
let's,
to,
why don't we have two motions then? First would be that we put in next month's agenda to discuss this intersection. The, I don't even know, the East Illinois at North Main intersection. Can I get it?
Do I have a second? Yes,
Next month, or is it October?
October is our next
Next
meeting.
meeting.
Next meeting.
Next month's meeting, yeah.
Second question. Would it be beneficial to have like a work session before we connect with ODOT?
Okay, we have a motion. I think we need a second or the motion dies and we continue discussion. Is that correct? Yes, Will.
Parliamentary procedure would be that after a discussion, you would decide if you want to move forward. There would have to be a second, and otherwise it might die or it could be tabled to another meeting. So perhaps after some discussion, you could see if there's a second.
Okay.
So I'll just repeat, I have a motion to have a discussion about the intersection in order to come up with some proposed solutions or perhaps we might have other questions, but just to have it as an agenda item for our next meeting.
just for clarity, if I'm following this, is you're looking to make a motion to have this discussion as an agenda item in the October meeting
Yes.
to consider, to either review or consider possible alternatives?
Exactly. Thank you.
There's a second on the motion.
I second.
Any further discussion? I heard a suggestion about a work study or a meeting to discuss some ideas. Is that?
Yeah, it was more of a question if that was something that was necessary before our next meeting, but I feel like it was dismissed, so.
Is it even possible to do a working group like that? I don't, yeah, I guess
So
that's.
you're asking about having a work session, if I follow the question, you know, a work session of this commission before having a ODOT asked to come to that component. That's something that you could have the discussion at your October meeting and come to those, identify those elements and have ODOT come back to a different meeting is a scenario that could occur. And with the motion you have on the table currently, it would need a vote on that to move that one forward. But as far as the question, as far as a work session, that is something that could be done. And the invitation to ODOT can be made. There's no guarantee that they'll be able to attend any particular meeting. They've been responsive in the past, and I would expect them to be so, to do what they could.
So any further discussion? So you vote on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion passes.
Can you
Yes.
re-articulate the motion one more time? So
Brett, was you? Okay.
One moment here. So what I had was move to motion, a motion to move to have the discussion of this intersection at the October meeting as an agenda item to suggest and review potential alternatives.
thank you.
Councillor O'Neill, I believe. Did you want to make a motion to have this working group? Because I like the idea. I don't think we can solve this in a single 2-hour session, right? Be better to at least get rid of the fluffy stuff in a working group. And then when we get to the 2 hours, focus on just a number, whatever, 5, 6, whatever number of solutions, and then narrow that down to keywords. Makes sense to me.
That's kind of what I was thinking myself, but again, wasn't clear on the process that we were able to do. Was also just confused about that whole situation. But I will put in a motion to have a work session ahead of that next meeting if we want to.
Could I make one, I just want to make this commission aware, you can have a work group, and Rachel, correct me if I go astray on this. You could create a work group among yourself of 2 or 3 commissioners to begin that process of identifying things. Is that what you're referring to as a work session, or are you?
Trying to schedule an extra meeting.
Okay, that's
So with the entire.
what I wanted to make certain of clarity on that piece of it.
Be a public meeting, similar to what
You'd be,
this meeting
you'd have
is.
a work session as a public meeting with the full body, and that's piece of, that's something, that's the other scenario, which it seems like that you can do.
And I guess I only wanted to have a conversation as a commission before we kind of talk to ODOT with potential, we'll have a bigger conversation with ODOT. I would like to come together as a board and have some consensus before moving into a ODOT. That was my thought process. So it doesn't need to be a separate work session if they don't come to the next meeting, but if they are going to come to the next meeting, I would think it would be beneficial to have a work session before the next meeting.
I guess just I'm thinking through the logistics of what you're referring to, because I can make a request for ODOT for the October meeting. I have no control over timing of when they would get back to me or elements with that element there. So if you're looking to have a work session prior to that, if they would agree to that, and you're looking to have a work session, then needing to kind of coordinate how we would make that happen is unclear to me.
How will we go about setting the date for that work meeting? Are we going to do that this evening or what?
I would think if we're interested in having a work session, we ought to set a date, but that's, well,
I would suggest perhaps we first of all, reach out to ODOT to see if they are able to attend the next regularly scheduled session. And if we don't receive clarity within, say, a month's gap before that meeting, then we could look at adding an extra meeting for you guys to have that work session. So maybe give it the college try first and see if we can get a response from ODOT.
What I was hearing, though, you would like to have a discussion of the commission before a presentation by ODOT, is what I heard.
Yes, I think we are all on the similar. I'm hearing both of you correctly. Yes, that is what I'm asking for, but I think what City Manager Will is suggesting is that we reach out to ODOT first, get a sense if they are going to show up or if they are not responsive by a certain date, and then that gives us a month or two still to schedule another meeting ahead of that meeting if they do end up showing. Does that make sense?
So I'm hearing you would like to have a special meeting if ODOT's not going to be able to come to the October meeting. But if they're going to be able to come to October, then we'll just continue on with our regular schedule.
Exactly. My apologies.
Yeah, if you could re-clear that, fly that for myself.
Yes, go ahead.
So we'll reach out to ODOT, or I guess maybe we need to put a motion to reach out to ODOT to invite them to the next meeting.
I don't necessarily need a motion for
Okay.
that. I can make that
Cool.
ask. for that
Sweet,
piece
let's
of it.
reach out. I think we want to reach out to ODOT to see if they're able to come to the October meeting. If they are responsive and say they're planning to show up, we will schedule another meeting. We will coordinate to schedule another meeting ahead of that meeting to be prepared as a commission.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. Do you have a preference of an August or a September? We can kind of so we can start the coordination process to find the room and the location and make what alternatives we have for a meeting date and time for that.
Other groups that I'm involved in have pretty much eliminated any August meetings because of travel and everything
Okay.
else going on. And so September timeframe seems to be more reasonable for attendance wise and things. So
Okay, I think that
So
will work.
do
So
we
we're
need
targeted
a
for
second
something
on
in
this
September.
motion?
I don't think
We
Brett
don't-
needs a
I
motion.
don't
Okay.
think I need a
We
motion
can
on this.
coordinate.
So
So,
Brett, you'll get back to us then
yeah,
with
I'll
the
send an
response from
email
ODOT?
through an email. Chair, I'll work with you on that.
Okay.
From
And
that piece of it.
So
I do
again, if we
have-
don't, we hear that they can't be there, then we'll talk. We can do emails or whatever else to talk about a special meeting in September.
Yeah, I do have one question or one for clarification. When I send the request to ODOT, for what are we looking for them to provide input on? And is it going to be input on to the lower cost type mitigation measures or something for along the lines of going on for a full intersection improvement that would be getting something into their master planning process? Because there's different people that might attend with that piece of it. And it may be both of those scenarios that you're looking for.
Yeah, I think we can keep, if we can just have them focus on, they know about 240 and, you know, because we've discussed with them in other meetings
Yeah.
when they were here. And so if, I'd like to know is where they're at on anything on that.
As far as anything happening, I can speak to the conversations that I had
Right.
with the regional operations engineer and the safety investigations engineer with ODOT for the area, is as far as a project for 240 at Illinois that's going to rebuild the intersection and do anything, have anything significance, that's not on their radar at this stage.
Right.
And the crash data just for them just does not support that going forward and spending the dollars in that
And so I
direction.
think the other part would be is what are they willing to let Newburgh do around that area, even if it's not, you know, we're not going to change the road. We might change signage. We might want to change curbing, you know, those kind of things. It's like, where's their red line of like, oh, no, you can't do anything without our approval or.
Yeah, so, okay, that gives me a little more, if that's kind of a consensus and nodding of the shaking of the heads of the commissioners would grip me that direction, that's kind of what I'm viewing as more of those lower cost
Right.
mitigation measures that might end up being there. I think I can get somebody that would be there to help with what their feedback would be on that. In fact,
Yeah,
they've indicated that it's
exactly.
in the information that's in the packet that they've indicated of that piece of it. So we can kind of do that part of it.
Could they also discuss if there are other intersections in the state that they have dealt with this type of a traffic flow area, that they might be able to discuss some solutions or what's happening in those areas?
I can ask that question again and see if they've come up with something different than they've identified. Because when we were talking about it last week, we talked through a different number of different things, and it's like each thing leads to an unintended consequence that has a negative impact somewhere, ripple effects, as we refer to, and kind of as from an engineering component of things, it just happens. So, but yes, I can ask that in the question as well for them to come thinking of anything else that might be of help for any other suggestions.
Any other discussions about this issue? Has Keller looked at this at all?
This is not currently something that's in the Keller work plan. The comments that we have, we received some comments, we received a traffic issue report from. That's one of the things I was referring to that actually references this intersection. So I'm looking to have it, it's in the active issues log. I'm looking to have it incorporated into the Keller work plan. I've also from conversation with the city manager, I think he made a mention of it today, is whatever items that come through from suggestions from here, we'd most likely have Keller to look at it to weigh in on it as well.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. We are up to item number 7A, review of the 2025 Traffic Safety Commission work plan. Something we brought up and discussed a little bit of the last meeting. And I think, again, because of the timing, I would suggest that maybe we keep that on the agenda and discuss at our next meeting if possible. Any discussion about that? Okay, hearing that, let's go on. Staff comments.
Just to clarify, you're looking to table this discussion on the work plan until the next meeting time period?
Any other staff comments?
Anything specific other than just, again, kind of thanking the commissioners for your time, looking at this piece of it and information and making certain that you do stay up on kind of keeping track with the traffic safety emails that you get, and because there's things that will be sent related to that to keep up on that and continue that. I appreciate that.
And I'd like to echo that. I really appreciate you guys taking the time as Newburgh residents who live here, focusing on our local issues. Thank you very much for your time.
I appreciate, I asked staff to give me an advanced copy of the packet, because I'm kind of like to take notes, and it's hard for me to do on electronic copies. And so I can appreciate receiving that and having a chance to go through that. It was helpful in my case. Okay. Commissioner comments. Go ahead.
I just have a question about how we're handling the meeting notes, the approval of those. I think we changed things last time. And do we require to have a response, or is no response considered an approval of the minutes?
I've been taking it based on the discussions we had when we made the change, is if there was no response, that's an approval of no comments, only using the comments that I received to make edits to those.
I just want to be sure. Thanks.
Any other comments? Okay, with that, we'll have adjourned the meeting, and next meeting is set for October 12th. Thank you.